Father Arseny turned towards the camp, blessed it, and prayed for all those still living in it. Lord, how can I leave them? How will I be without them? Do not leave all those who live here without your mercy. Help them. And kneeling in the snow, he prayed. It was cold, the wind threw clumps of snow, but Father Arseny felt none of it. He prayed for a long time, then stood up and left the camp. He passed the sentries and walked along the road. Somewhere far away he saw a bright, inviting light and walked towards it. He walked easily and calmly. He passed the forest and the village and suddenly found himself in his own town, the one with his church, his very church, the church where he first served as a new priest, where he, with the help of his many spiritual children who worked hard to restore its ancient beauty. How can this be, my Lord? Why am I here? He murmured and entered into the church. The first thing he saw was the familiar icon of the Mother of God, the ancient miracle-working one whose sorrowful face had looked deeply and attentively at each who approached her. Everything in this church was as he had left it, but now it was full of people, even overflowing with people. The faces of the people praying were joyous, and they looked at the icon of the Mother of God. As Father Arseny walked towards the altar, the people squeezed right and left to leave a passage for him. He walked towards the altar with a light and happy step. Having entered the altar, he wanted to vest himself and began to remove his camp jacket for the service. But somebody who was standing nearby said firmly to him, "Don't take it off. These clothes are also vestments for service." Father Arseny looked at his padded cotton prison jacket. It was shining and blindingly white. He put on his priest's stole to begin serving, and he was amazed. The altar was flooded with a bright light. The whole church gave out light, and the icons looked quite extraordinary on the walls. They seemed almost alive. There were many praying people. They were praying deeply and joyously. Serving the liturgy, Father Arseny saw that together with him served the hieromarch Herman, the priest Ambrosi, the deacon Piotr, and several more priests. And he, Father Arseny, knew all those who served with him now. At the side of the altar quietly stood Bishops Jonna, Anthony, Boris, and his spiritual father and friend, Bishop Theophil, and they all looked at him with joy. Lord, thought Father Anthony, they all died a long time ago, and now they are here. It is so good to be here together. Father Arseny served, and his soul was full of joy. Prayer filled all his being and uplifted him. Blessing the people praying with him, he understood that he knows them all as well. They were his spiritual children, his parishioners, and others he had met in different places and different camps. He had shared his life with these people, and all these people were praying for someone. They were asking for something. And looking more carefully at them, he realized that just like the priest serving with him and the bishops standing in the altar, all these people had died, some a long time ago and some more recently. O Mother of God, how can this be? Thought Father Arseny. He did not wait for an answer, but he entered deeply into the service, into prayer. As he served the altar, he felt that he was burning with joy and inner warmth. He received communion, finished the liturgy, and knelt before the icon of the Mother of God of Vladimir and asking her to forgive all his sins. O Mother of God, the Heavenly Father has called me to judgment because I have died. Do not leave me. Be my intercessor before your Son. Do not leave me. I put my trust in you. I am an unworthy sinner. And as he prayed for the forgiveness of his own souls, he also begged the Mother of God not to leave all those who were still alive. He prayed for his spiritual children, for the prisoners with whom he had lived and who were still in camps. He prayed for Alexei, the student, for Avsenkov, for Sazikov, for Abrosimov, for Alchevsky, and for many others. He lost the concept of time and prayed so hard that he felt all those praying in this church prayed with him, repeating again and again, O birth giver of God, do not forget them, the long suffering. He cried, he sobbed, and tears flowed all over his face. Father Arseny's heart ached and was tight in his chest. How would they survive, all those who were there? Again he asked the Mother of God not to forget them, whose suffering is beyond what man can bear. And suddenly he heard a voice, a clear, extremely gentle but firm, clear voice saying, "The time of your death has not yet come, Arseny. You must serve people some time longer. God is sending you back to help his people. Go and serve. I will not leave you." Father Arseny lifted his head, looked at the icon, and saw that the Mother of God seemed to have come down from the icon and stood in its place. He fell on his knees at her feet and could only repeat, "Mother of God, do not leave them, and have mercy on me, a sinner." And again he heard her voice, "Lift up your face, Arseny, look at me and tell me what you want to tell me. Tell me your thoughts." Father Arseny lifted his face, looked at the Mother of God, and overcome by her kindness and her unearthly greatness, bowed low and said, "Mother of God, your will be done, yours and the Lord's, but I am old and ill. Will I be able to serve these people as you, the Sovereign One, want me to?" "You are not alone, Arseny. There are many people serving me. You will serve alongside them, and together with them you will help many. God has just shown you that he has many people helping him. He has shown you the souls of the people who live in the camps. Faith does live in many of them. Faith and love. You are not alone in the kindness you bestow. Go, serve me, I will help you." And Father Arseny felt the hand of the Mother of God touch his head. Father Arseny arose, took off his priest's stole, bowed to all those gathered, the priest and the people, and saw once again that he knew them all and that he had accompanied most of them to their eternal rest. His life was in some way tied to each of them. He approached the royal doors, knelt, arose, and asked the congregation gathered there not to forget him in their prayers, and walked to the door of the church. As he was walking by them, the people blessed him. He came out of the church with his soul overflowing with joy. It was easy to walk. He was walking towards the camp, towards his barracks. The forest, the road, the houses all raced by him. He passed the sentries, entered his barracks, walked to his bunk, saw his body on it. With the people gathered around it, he lay down on his bunk and heard someone say, "It's all over. He is getting cold. Our Father Arseny has died. It's almost 5 o'clock and will soon be time for reveille. We will have to inform the supervisors." Someone added, "We have all been orphaned. He helped so many of us. I fought against God my whole life, but he showed him to me. He revealed him by his own actions." Father Arseny sighed deeply. It surprised them all and it frightened many. He calmly said, "I was in my church, and now you see the Mother of God has sent me back to you." And nobody felt that these words were strange, although they were still amazed at his return. Some 2 weeks later, Father Arseny was able to get up. Everything seemed strange to him. Life in general and people all looked different. Each person wanted to help. Each person brought him a little bit of his own ration. Even the fair one brought some butter and gave it to Sazakov for Father Arseny. Father Arseny got up, came to life. The terrible illness left him. The Lord and the Mother of God had sent him to serve people, had sent him back into the world. Mikhail. All the prisoners were accounted for and had been pushed back into the barracks. The doors were locked. Before sleeping, you could talk a little, share impressions of life in the camp, play dominoes, or simply lie on your bunk and remember your past. Even 2 hours after the doors were locked, you could still hear some chatting. Then the voices would get quieter and silence would overtake the barracks. After the barracks had been locked, Father Arseny stood for a long time near his bunk to pray. Then he lay down and continued to pray, and finally he fell asleep. His sleep was never very deep. Around 1 o'clock he felt someone pushing at him. He jumped up and saw an unknown man whispering to him, "Come, my neighbour is dying, he is calling for you." The dying man on the other side of the barracks was lying on his back and breathed raggedly with difficulty. His eyes were unnaturally wide open. "Please forgive me, but I need you. I'm dying," he said to Father Arseny, and suddenly said, almost ordered, "Sit down." Father Arseny sat on the side of the bunk. The light that was coming from the passageway between the bunks weakly lit the dying man's face, which was covered with beads of sweat. His hair was wet, his lips were closed tightly, he was worn out, he was dying. But his eyes looked at Father Arseny like 2 burning torches. And these eyes lived, burned and rushed the whole life this man had lived. He was leaving this life, he had suffered, he was tired, but he wanted to bring an account of his life to God. "Please hear my confession, forgive me my sins. I am a monk, a secret monk." Those whose bunks were near Mikhail's got up and found another place to sleep. They could all see that death was upon him. Even in barracks one had to be merciful and indulgent towards a dying man. Father Arseny bent over the monk, straightened the torn blanket which covered him, put his hand on his head, whispered the prayers before confession, and gathering his own spirit, prepared to hear his confession. "My heart is giving out," said the man, saying that his name as a monk was Mikhail. He began his confession, bent over his face near the face of the dying man. Father Arseny listened to his barely audible whisper and looked into the eyes of Mikhail. Sometimes the whispering would stop, and you could hear wheezing when Mikhail had difficulty breathing. He was gasping for air. At times he would become silent, and one might think he had died, but his eyes remained alive, and Father Arseny, looking into them, could read all that the sick man was trying to say in his difficult whisper. Father Arseny had heard the confession of many people on their deathbeds, and always these confessions shook him deeply. But now, listening to the confession of Mikhail, Father Arseny clearly understood that he had before him a man with an unusually great spiritual life, a man of prayer. A righteous man was dying, a man who had given his life to God and to his fellow men. A righteous man was dying, and Father Arseny understood that the priest, Arseny, was unworthy to kiss the hem of the garment of the monk Mikhail, and that he was nothing in comparison. The whispers came in shorter bits, but the eyes were burning, radiating light. They were alive, and again Father Arseny was able to read in these eyes everything the dying man wanted to say. In his confession, Mikhail was severe with himself. He accused himself without pity. At times there was the feeling that Mikhail had already separated himself from the man who was on the bunk and was talking about him from the outside. Father Arseny saw that Mikhail's worldly life, like a ship loaded with his pains, worries and griefs past and present, had already sailed away from him to the distant world of forgetfulness, and now only the essentials remained for him to bring before God for scrutiny. Having discarded everything which was not essential, all that was essential had to be entrusted to the hands of the priest Arseny, and he, through the authority vested in him by God, was to forgive and absolve it all. In the few minutes that he had left to live, the monk Mikhail had to bring everything to God, acknowledge all his sins, and clear his conscience before appearing before the judgment of God. A man was dying the same way so many had died before him in the hands of Father Arseny, but this death made Father Arseny tremble, and he understood that God had done to him a great kindness in allowing him to hear the confession of this righteous man. The Lord was showing him his greatest treasure, which he had lovingly cultivated. He was showing him to what height of perfection a man can rise, a man who loved God, who took up the yoke and burden of being a Christian and carried it to the end. All of this Father Arseny saw and understood. The confession of the dying Mikhail brought Father Arseny to see how, even under the unbelievably complicated circumstances of modern life, with its political upheavals, its complex human relations, the officially supported atheism, the trampling of the faith, the fall of moral values, the constant suspicions and false reports, and the lack of any spiritual guidance, a man of deep faith could overcome everything which came between him and God. The monk Mikhail had not travelled towards God from inside a monastery or a skete, but out in the harsh conditions of life, during the harshest of times, in a bitter battle against the forces of evil, against aggressive atheism. He had almost no support or guidance. He had met 2 or 3 priests and had had the joy of a year in contact with Bishop Theodore, who had tonsured him. Later, Mikhail had received 2 or 3 brief letters from him, but mainly he had been moved by his indestructible burning desire to move nearer and nearer to God. Did I walk the right path? Did I walk as I should have, or did I take a wrong path? I do not know, said Mikhail. But Father Arseny saw that Mikhail had not only not strayed from the path shown him by Bishop Theodore, but that he had walked this path very far, further than his spiritual guides ever had themselves. The life Mikhail had led was like a battle for spiritual and moral perfection, and this amidst the everyday life of this century. Father Arseny understood that Mikhail had won this battle, a battle engaged one-on-one with the evil all around him. Out among people, he was doing good in the name of God and carried in his soul the words of the apostle like a burning flame, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. Galatians 6:2. Father Arseny understood the perfection and greatness of Mikhail and acknowledged his own nothingness. He prayed fervently, almost aggressively, that God grant him, Father Arseny, the strength to ease the final minutes of the dying man. At times, Father Arseny felt utterly helpless, but at the same time, he felt great joy in feeling so close to Mikhail, whose confession was opening for him the mysterious ways of God, teaching him about and setting him on the path to deepest faith. And then the time came when Mikhail had given all he had in his soul to Father Arseny, and through him to God. He looked at Father Arseny with a question in his eyes. Taking the burden of Mikhail's sins and holding it in his hands, Father Arseny took it all upon his own priestly soul and trembled. He trembled again as he realized his human nothingness and helplessness. Having said the prayers of absolution over Mikhail, he at first sobbed internally and then wept uncontrollably in full view of the dying man. Mikhail raised his eyes and looked deeply at Father Arseny. He said, "I thank you, be calm again. The hour of God's will has come. Pray for me while you are on this earth. Your life's journey is still long. I beg you, take my hat." A note addressed to two people is sewn into it. They are people of great faith, very great faith. Their addresses are there. When you are out of this camp, when you are free, give the note to them. They need you and you need them. Sew your own Zek number into my hat. Pray to God for the monk Mikhail. During the whole confession, they had been alone in the barracks. The barracks itself, the people living in it, the whole atmosphere had been somewhere far away, had disappeared into some kind of non-being. A state of closeness to God, prayerful contemplation and silent inner unity seized them both and placed them before God. All that was painful, stormy, or human had gone away. There was only the Lord God, to whom the one was now going, while the other was being permitted to contemplate something so great and mysterious, death, the departure from this life. The dying man squeezed the hand of Father Arseny and prayed so deeply that he had left everything of this world. And Father Arseny, his soul so near to Mikhail's in prayerful union, released all that was around him and with reverence humbly followed in the prayer of the monk Mikhail. But now came the time of death. The eyes of the dying man lit up with a silent light of joy, and he whispered, "Do not forsake me, O my Lord." Mikhail sat up, stretched out his hands, almost made a step forward, and said loudly twice, "Lord, Lord." Then he fell backward. The hand that had been holding Father Arseny's opened, and Mikhail's features grew peaceful, but his eyes were bright and gazed upwards with joy. It seemed to Father Arseny that he saw with his own eyes how the soul of Mikhail was leaving his body. Shaken, Father Arseny fell to his knees and began to pray, but not for the soul and salvation of the departed. He was thanking God, who in his mercy had made him worthy to see the unseen, the unknowable, and the most mysterious of mysteries, the death of a righteous man. Father Arseny arose from his knees and bent over the body of Mikhail, whose eyes were still open and bright, but whose light was slowly fading. A barely perceptible mist covered them as the eyelids slowly closed. A shadow ran over his face, and because of this it became majestic, joyous, and peaceful. Bent over Mikhail's body, Father Arseny prayed, and although he had just witnessed Mikhail's death, he did not feel grief, only peacefulness and an inner joy. He had seen a righteous man who had touched God's mercy and his glory. Father Arseny lovingly arranged Mikhail's clothing and bowed to his body.